Hey everyone! As you can already tell from the title, today I'm telling you my doll story. And I wanted to split this up into two videos, one on Allan and one of my main character, Flash. But it kind of turned out that their stories are so intertwined at this point. While trying to tell one of their stories, you inevitably have to say something about the other. And so I decided to just put them together. For all my other characters, I think it works to not have them together and separately, but for these two, more detailed stories, maybe later. But for now, I want to give you just a quick overview of what my story is. I can't hold two dolls like that. Let me change. Yes, this is better. So, maybe I should go into the dolls themselves a little bit. Because she's my first doll. Okay, you know that I obsessed over this doll. And I'm the kind of person who I can't just have a doll for the sake of that doll being pretty. I just need things to make sense and be very clear. If they don't, it just stresses me out a lot. So Allan and his whole character was made up with the sole purpose of me having the best excuse to buy this doll. So his character, therefore, is slightly better developed than her. Which is a shame, because she's the main character. Flash, by the way, her name, in case you wonder why she has such a strange name, and you would be very right to think that, because I also agree that the name's really strange, but it just stuck now, you know? At the time when I got my first doll in 2016, my favorite show was a Swedish, crime drama science fiction show called Real Humans, and my favorite character from that show is called Flash. Anyway, Flash grows up quite isolated from society. Spends a lot of time alone. Her parents don't really pay a lot of attention to her. They're kind of at the edge of society in the woods. She's a lot outside, having kind of a peaceful but also a bit of a lonely life. Until one night she wakes up due to strange sounds from downstairs. And as she goes down, finds the horrific scene of her parents being brutally murdered by a group of cloaked people. And at the sight of her, it becomes clear that they're there for her too. And she flees and runs far away. But of course she stumbles and falls and loses consciousness. She wakes up a few days later in the camp of this guy who found her and took her in and tended to her wounds, made sure that she's healing, make sure that she's fine. You know, there to help her find back to where she belongs, or so he thinks. But then, of course, it turns out that, well, she has nobody and nowhere to go. But luckily, of course, Allan is there, who decides to help her and lets her stay with him for a while. As these two very quickly bond and become really good friends to the point where he is like a brother to her. And a bit about Allan here. Allan is a mage. Possibly one of the best current living young mages in the world. And that in his childhood does lead to issues with his family. Because he is a bit different and they don't really know what to do with him. And they can't really support him. So at quite a young age, I would say somewhere around 12, he is given away to Aunt Gracie, the centaur that is still in parts, who becomes his mentor and the closest thing to family that he has, as he does grow kind of estranged from his family. And he also develops his special focus on herbs and potions. From his time in the woods with the centaur, he enjoyed to be outside in the forest quite a lot. And yeah, he finds Flash and takes her back to his little house. He has other friends that also take her under their wing and help her, and everyone just kind of quickly becomes good friends. And she also discovers that she likes archery, and she really starts putting a lot of focus and passion into that. She is in her late teens when they meet. Of course, she grows and becomes a young woman, and as he sees her maturing, he starts to develop feelings for her, and she is blissfully unaware of how much pain her friend zone is causing Allan. He's quite tormented by his unrequited love for her throughout most of the story. Anyway, she gets a clue that there was more to the murder. And of course, the whole thing that happened to her sits with her a lot and how it ties in with her, because of course it's a lot more about her than her parents. Allan, of course, being the supportive guy and good friend he is, joins her and 3 of their friends, including Kureyuki, who is part of the city guard. They join. And 2 other friends they have, Raymond and Venice, who are siblings actually. So the 5 of them set off on the journey to help Flash find out what happened. And the truth behind that, because now I feel like stuff gets a bit complicated and twisted, Allan is actually very much involved. Not that he was one of the cloaked figures, but he helped find them. It was actually her parents' strategy of hiding her. And those cloaked figures are after a hidden cause that had a lot to do with her. They had contacted Allan, knowing that as a young, kind of arrogant and like, oh, I have so much power, child prodigy. Because when they meet, he is actually kind of preparing for his final exam to become part of the Mages Council. He had been contacted to find some people and he didn't really think too much of it, and he did get some very vague orders. He also at some point got a request to bring her to a special place. Of course, it turns out that at that special place is a trap. The plan was they can just take her, and he's not fully aware. As the situation arises and things suddenly click for him, he at that point had already been having a bad feeling about what he had been doing, even though kind of unaware of what pain it caused. Also tormented by his unrequited love for her. Willing to sacrifice his life for her, basically. Does exactly that, because at last or right moment he steps in front of her and takes the shot that was meant for her. And dramatically, yeah, I came up with this as a teenager, so forgive me for the drama. He dies basically in her arms, and that is the only point where he feels like he can confess his love to her. And that's also when she kisses him, shocked by losing her best friend, her brother, her family, basically. And she dearly loved Allan, but whether her love for him was romantic is not very clear. She basically is then informed, as she's just trying to process the grief, he is not necessarily dead. And at the northern edge of their world, she can descend down to the underworld and save Allan. And it's an absolutely insane plan. And there is no real basis to believe anything of that. But she is just clinging to the idea that he's not dead, that she goes on the journey. Everyone tells her it's mad, he's dead. Accept it. You can't go to the underworld like that to save him, but no, she goes off. And nobody wants to join her, so she ventures off alone. And she descends down, and she finds a truly dark and evil place. And the underworld is not like a type of hell or like Tartarus. This is literally a world under their world, where their world is kind of the final one, and there was an older world, and there's a whole war and big story for that as well. This is really a very big story that has just so many details and also missing plot points, and I can't go into everything because that video would just be awfully long, and I'm so sorry. But anyway, she descends into the world that should be empty but isn't, because there was a bit of an issue in moving from the lower world to their world. Topic for another time. She descends there and goes through, well, basically her personal hell. Although it's not like hell as in a place like in Christianity at all. Well, lo and behold, she does find Allan, and he is not dead, and she saves him, of course. And they return. At that moment, a huge war is brewing that does heavily involve those others. Now it's about joining forces and saving the world. And, well, him coming clear with his part in the story, and her discovering what part she plays, and everything that happens and happened and why and who she really is. She discovers also why her parents have kept her hidden, but I don't want to give everything away yet, and I want to talk about everyone else, and we have a lot of time to talk about stuff. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video that is their story and that ended up just telling the very, very main and basic plot points, and now you know a little bit more about my characters. And I will talk about all my other dolls as well. So stay tuned for that. Do subscribe. I guess I'm supposed to say these things, right? Subscribe and hit that notification bell and leave a comment down below. What do you think? Yeah, tell me what do you think of my story. I hope nothing was confusing here. And if you have any thoughts or questions, leave a comment, because I always really appreciate your lovely comments and I love interacting with you and sharing my dolls and doll stuff with you. So I see you in the next video. Bye!